How do you draw anyone as cartoons? Well, here's how you don't do it. Take a reference picture and get straight to stylizing it. You try drawing one person and you end up drawing their long-lost cousin whose face was chewed by a koala. So here's a 5-step process that has actually worked for me. First up, references. So how do you choose them? How do you get these nice reference pictures? Well, sites like pexels.com will give you royalty-free images for you to choose from. But Pinterest, though, is my go-to site. I found that the key to picking great references is to choose one that A, attracts you like a magnet, and B, to choose something that has very defining features, like facial features or attire, accessories, weirdo hairstyles. Hey man, no judgment. Choose your poison. By the way, I've got a Pinterest board down below with all the faces that I've liked and along with a PDF of this tutorial, so links down below if you want to download that. Step 1 is to see. See, art is not about drawing, it's about learning how to see, or at least that I've found to be true. So, how do you see this image? I usually start off by noting the thing that attracts me the most. This is what I like to call an intangible feature. It's more like a vibe, an emotion. For example, this monk right here has this sense of solidity to him. You know, it gives that vibe of solidness, that firmness, and that is visually represented by this solid cheek forms and the boxy head of the entire face. Vibe mixed with how it's represented visually. The image that I chose to caricature right here has a bit of flamboyance and a bit of smirkiness to it, which I kind of like, and also has that boxy, solid, firm vibe to it. So these are all the emotions that I'm getting from this, and I'm sort of making note of that.
Are you sure about that?
Step 2, which is a continuation of step 1, and here it's all about breaking down the image to its core elements with what I like to call the rule of threes. I ask myself, what are the 3 core shapes that makes up this drawing? And I ask myself that and I start sketching. For example, in this image, these are the 3 core shapes that I found to be true. And in this one, it's these. And in this, it's this one. See what I'm doing right here? We're trying to capture the essence of the face in its most simplest form that we possibly can. I used these 3 core shapes as an idea to draw my first layer of the base sketch. And no matter how simplistic or realistic you choose to go with your style, these 3 key shapes will play a huge role in your drawing and how it turns out. So broskies, folksies, don't miss this face. Get it right. When I'm applying the rule of 3 for a very generic facial feature person such as this one right here, what I try to do is I look for the shape of the skull, the top of the skull, and then I look for the kind of shape the jawline has. For example, right here is a bit of on the pointy, boxy side right here. And then I look for the third shape, which is always, most of the time, some sort of hair, right? And we have these things. So these are the 3 shapes that I'm sort of finding, which I'm going to later play on when I'm drawing this character. One of the key things that I try to focus on during this phase when I'm doing this so-called base sketch is I try to exaggerate, distort, and modify the core shapes to get like very different and radical results. You sort of play right here. You just don't think too much. You just have your 3 core shapes and you just play with it like a kid. Just stretch it, pull it, you know, all those weird things kindergartners do to their toys. That's what you do to your core shapes. The next thing that I would look for is secondary features and shapes of this character or this face, and I boil it down to even more simpler shapes. And then I use something called the principle of simplicity, which is to take the essence of a particular feature and further simplify it. For example, take this eye right here, and instead of drawing it like this, you draw it like this. See? Simple. In my opinion, cartooning is an abstraction of life. It's a simplified, exaggerated version of what you actually see, and I use this particular principle to achieve that.
Cash, mine does not look anything like the image. What do I do?
Well, my friend, that's where step 4 comes in, which is playtime. Nobody gets it right the first time. The whole point of this whole thing is to do 2 or 3 variation sketches of this particular image, and each time you get a different result. result. And each time you try to modify three things, which is lines, angles, and particularly shapes, in order to get a better result that you personally like. And that's what I try to do here, which is to play. But the thing is, you can go too far. You might create something that looks like it's from the Ice Age. You don't want that. In that case, use rule of T, not that T, which is to try to maintain an approximate distance between the eyes, nose, and the mouth. If you were to draw a T shape between the eyes, the nose, and the mouth, and it sort of forms a proportion like this, and you might want to maintain that vertical and horizontal proportion line of the T and sort of use that as a guide mark in your drawing and get that. Along with, this is the most important part, which is get the core shape of the face right. And once you put all this together, you, my friend, will get what we call the sketch. This is the exact process that I and my other students from my programs use to get results like this, 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 and this. This is the process. But to wrap this all up, that's where step 5 comes in, which is I do some simple inks and then I use my 3-step coloring process, which is flats, shadows, and refinements. I keep it simple. I get the flat colors in and I get the shadows in, and then I do a little bit of highlights and refinements. And for shadows, if you're wondering, I just break the image down into 2 aspects, the light areas and the shadow areas, and I just capture the shadow shapes in my drawing, and that's how you do it. And voila, you will have it. Fun sketchbook exercise that I often do to sort of wither my time away on this planet. Cash, how do you draw the body? Well, don't worry about that. We'll cover that in the next video. Or you can check out my 14-day draw-along cartooning program that has 14 different principles that we go through 14 different days with specific exercises, masterclass assignments that will get you started right away in 30 minutes a day. Or you can just wait for the next video.
Are you sure about that?
Pro tip on choosing references before we sort of leave: always try to pick reference images or people who have very distinguishing features that makes them easy to sort of caricature and cartoonize them. For example, look at these 2 people. They're both in the same angle, but the guy on the right with that very nice, weirdo, quirky hairstyle makes him more cartoonizable, if that is a word, than the other one. Again, in this example as well, the guy on the right has really nice forehead features, jaw, the strong jaw, and the nose. All of this makes the whole process fun.